I'm Olivia Bennett, 29 years old, and last Sunday my entire world collapsed at my parents' dining table in suburban Chicago. One minute we were sharing lasagna and childhood memories. The next my sister Rebecca was on her feet screaming, "You ruined our lives." What shattered me wasn't just her words, but watching my parents stand up behind her, actually applauding her outburst. I felt like I'd been erased from my own family. I didn't argue. I just left quietly. What I didn't know then was that my phone would ring exactly 99 times in the next 24 hours. Before I tell you how my entire family turned against me in one night, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by those who should love you most. Growing up in our modest two-story house in the Chicago suburbs, Rebecca and I were inseparable. She was 2 years younger, with our mother's golden hair and dazzling smile, while I inherited Dad's darker features and analytical mind. When we were little, it seemed like our differences complemented each other. Rebecca brought spontaneity and laughter. I brought stability and solutions. Our childhood photos show us with arms wrapped around each other, gap-toothed smiles beaming at the camera. But looking back now, I can see the subtle threads of favoritism woven throughout our upbringing. When Rebecca brought home C's on her report card, Mom would say, "At least you're having fun and making friends." When I brought home A's, the response was often, "Well, that's expected." My achievements became the baseline, invisible and unremarkable, while Rebecca's smallest accomplishments were celebrated lavishly. The summer I turned 16, I worked 2 jobs to save for college. Rebecca spent that same summer at an expensive theater camp that drained our parents' savings, but it was worth it to nurture her creative spirit. The pattern continued through high school and beyond. My scholarships were lucky breaks, while Rebecca's acceptance to a mediocre arts program was proof of her exceptional talent. Despite this, I loved my sister fiercely. When she called crying about roommate drama in college, I drove 3 hours to help her move. When she needed money for rent after spending her allowance on clothes, I dipped into my tight student budget. I kept telling myself this was what big sisters do. They protect. They provide. They persevere. After college, I secured an entry-level position at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, working brutal hours while completing my master's in healthcare administration at night. Meanwhile, Rebecca bounced between acting gigs and retail jobs, always quitting when things got too stressful or someone failed to recognize her potential. Each career crisis brought midnight calls and tearful conversations. "You don't understand what it's like," she would say. "Not everyone can be perfect like you live." But I wasn't perfect. I was just responsible. There's a difference. By 27, I had been promoted to department manager at the hospital, overseeing a team of 30 and a substantial budget. Rebecca, at 25, had cycled through 6 jobs and 3 apartments. When she got evicted for unpaid rent, guess who cleared out her storage unit at 2 a.m.? When she needed a deposit for a new place, guess whose emergency fund got tapped? Arky. Parents remained her most devoted cheerleaders. "Rebecca just hasn't found her path yet," Mom would say. "She feels things so deeply. Not everyone can shut off their emotions and focus on work like you can." Comments like these stung, but I brushed them aside. Family is family, I told myself. The first major fracture came when Rebecca decided to buy a house she couldn't afford in an upscale neighborhood. "I deserve this," she declared. "This address will help my networking." When the bank required a cosigner due to her spotty employment history, she turned to me with tearful eyes. For once, I said no. "I can't risk my financial future like that, Becca," I explained gently, "but I can help you find something more affordable." The aftermath was ugly. Rebecca accused me of wanting her to fail. My parents called me selfish. Eventually, our father co-signed, and Rebecca moved into her dream house with its dream mortgage. 6 months later, she was behind on payments. Within a year, foreclosure notices arrived. Dad tapped into his retirement savings to cover the deficit, and the cycle continued. Then came the second house, in another exclusive neighborhood. Again, financial disaster. And finally, just last year, Rebecca was eyeing a third property she couldn't maintain, insisting this one would be different. By this point, I had met Marcus, a pediatric surgeon with kind eyes who asked dangerous questions like, "Have you ever considered that helping someone avoid consequences isn't actually helping them at all? And why do you think you're responsible for your sister's happiness but not your own?" These questions haunted me as I watched my parents age prematurely from financial stress. Dad postponed retirement. Mom started selling her jewelry. Yet they continued funneling resources to Rebecca, who spent extravagantly while crying poverty. I began establishing gentle boundaries. I stopped answering financial SOS calls after midnight. I declined co-signing responsibilities. I suggested financial counseling instead of cash transfers. Each boundary was met with accusations. I was heartless, I was judgmental, I didn't understand Rebecca's unique challenges. The tension simmered just below the surface for months. Then, last Sunday, Mom called inviting me to dinner. "It's been too long since we were all together," she said warmly. "Rebecca has some exciting news." I agreed, hoping for reconciliation. I even baked Mom's favorite lemon squares as a peace offering. As I drove to my parents' house that evening, I rehearsed positive, supportive things to say to Rebecca. Marcus's parting words echoed in my mind. "Remember, you can love someone while still protecting yourself." I had no idea I was driving straight into an ambush that would reveal just how conditional my family's love truly was. The evening sun cast a golden glow over my parents' driveway as I pulled in, carefully balancing the container of lemon squares on my lap while turning off the engine. The familiar sight of Dad's meticulously trimmed hedges and Mom's overflowing flower basket stirred a mixture of comfort and anxiety in my chest. This house represented both the warmth of family and the subtle inequities I'd spent years trying to ignore. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and whispered Marcus's mantra. "Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to healthier relationships." With a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and walked the stone path to the front door. Mom answered before I could knock, enveloping me in a cloud of her signature gardenia perfume. "Olivia, you're right on time, as always." Her tone carried that familiar mixture of approval and subtle criticism, as if my punctuality was somehow both expected and slightly annoying. The house smelled of garlic and tomato sauce, Mom's homemade lasagna, my childhood favorite. Dad emerged from his den, newspaper still in hand, giving me a quick side hug before returning to his recliner. "Rebecca's running a bit late," Mom explained, taking the lemon squares with an appreciative nod. "You know how traffic can be, and she's bringing someone special tonight." The kitchen looked the same as always, the collection of rooster figurines lining the windowsill, the refrigerator plastered with Rebecca's headshots and promotional flyers for small productions she'd been part of. I noticed the absence of the newspaper clipping about my department receiving a Healthcare Innovation Award last month, which I'd mailed them. Maybe it had fallen, I reasoned, refusing to read further into it. "So how's the hospital?" Dad called, from the living room, making the obligatory inquiry about my work. "Really good, actually. We just implemented a new patient care protocol that's showing promising results." "And that's nice, dear," Mom interrupted, stirring her sauce. "Did I tell you Rebecca might be getting a call back for that commercial? The one for the luxury cars?" And so it went. Every attempt to share something about my life was redirected to Rebecca's potential opportunities, almost successes and near misses. I helped set the table, fell into the familiar rhythm of our family dinner preparations, and reminded myself that not every conversation needed to be about me. When the doorbell rang at 7:30, Mom's face lit up. "That must be them, Rebecca." Swept in like a summer storm, all movement and noise, her laughter preceding her into the kitchen. Behind her stood a tall man with perfectly styled hair and an expensive watch that caught the light as he extended his hand to my father. "Mom, Dad, this is Tyler Richardson," Rebecca announced proudly. "My business partner and—" She paused dramatically. "My boyfriend." Tyler's handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "I've heard so much about the Bennett family. Rebecca speaks of you all constantly." Our eyes met briefly as he turned to me. Something in his assessing gaze made my skin prickle with unease. "Olivia," I said, extending my hand. "The sister." "Ah, the hospital administrator," he replied smoothly. "Rebecca mentioned you're good with numbers." Dinner began pleasantly enough. We passed the lasagna and garlic bread. Dad opened a bottle of wine that seemed more expensive than their usual selection. Mom asked all the right questions about how Rebecca and Tyler had met at a networking event for entrepreneurs, and how long they'd been seeing each other. Nearly 2 months, but it feels like forever. As we ate, I noticed Rebecca barely touched her food, instead fidgeting with excitement, exchanging meaningful glances with Tyler. Mom kept refilling their wine glasses while my own remained half full. "So, Tyler," Dad asked between bites, "what exactly is this business you and Rebecca are partners in?" Tyler dabbed his mouth with his napkin and sat straighter. "I'm glad you asked, sir. We're in the advanced stages of launching a multi-level wellness and lifestyle brand that's going to revolutionize the industry." My fork paused halfway to my mouth. "It's not just products," Rebecca jumped in. "It's a whole ecosystem of wellness, financial freedom, and personal growth." "That sounds—" I searched for a neutral word. "Ambitious." "It's more than ambitious," Tyler continued. "We've already secured several key investors, and the return projections are exceptional. Which brings us to our exciting news." Rebecca clasped her hands together. "Mom, Dad, we've been selected as regional directors. Only 20 couples in the entire Midwest qualified for this opportunity." My parents exchanged pleased glances. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom beamed. "What does being a regional director entail exactly?" I asked, trying to keep my tone conversational rather than skeptical. "We'll be building our own team of distributors," Rebecca explained. "And we get access to exclusive product lines and leadership bonuses." "Congratulations," I offered. "Does this position come with a salary or benefits?" A flicker of annoyance crossed Tyler's face. "It's not about a traditional paycheck, Olivia. It's about building an asset that generates passive income." The conversation shifted as Tyler launched into an elaborate explanation involving downlines, multiplication of effort, and leveraged income. The more he talked, the more my internal alarm bells rang. I'd seen the aftermath of these schemes before. A colleague had lost thousands in a similar opportunity. "Have you researched the company thoroughly?" I asked during a pause. "Sometimes. These multi-level structures can be problematic." Rebecca's smile tightened. "We've done our homework, Liv. Not everything is a spreadsheet to be analyzed to death." "I'm just asking because you think I'm incapable of making smart decisions," Rebecca cut in, her voice rising slightly. "Because you've always thought you're the only one with business sense in this family." "That's not what I—" "Rebecca has a real opportunity here," Mom interjected. "Can't you just be supportive for once?" The familiar sting of her words momentarily silenced me. For once? As if I hadn't spent years supporting Rebecca emotionally, financially, practically. Tyler smoothly redirected the conversation. "Actually, we wanted to discuss something important with all of you. To reach the Platinum Director level, we need to make a significant inventory investment within the next week." And there it was, the real purpose of this dinner. "How significant?" Dad asked, reaching for his wine glass. $50,000, Tyler said, as casually as if he'd mentioned $50. "But the return potential is extraordinary." My jaw dropped. 50,000? That's an enormous amount to invest in a new business. Rebecca shot me a warning look. "It's not just any business. It's a proven system." What company is this again? I asked, trying to gather information I could research later. Global Lifestyle Enterprises, Tyler replied. But our specific division is the Platinum Wellness Collection. I made a mental note to look it up. And this $50,000, where were you planning to get that kind of investment capital? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My parents exchanged glances. We're helping Rebecca with this opportunity, Dad finally said. We believe in her vision. The pieces clicked into place. You're giving her $50,000. From where? Mom fidgeted with her napkin. We've taken a second mortgage on the house. My stomach dropped. The house you're supposed to retire in? The one that's almost paid off? It's an investment. In Rebecca's future, Mom defended. And ours. Have you looked at the company's track record? Their financial statements? Anything? I could hear my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. Not everyone analyzes the joy out of every opportunity, Rebecca snapped. Some of us follow our intuition. Intuition won't pay a second mortgage. If this doesn't work out, I countered. And what about the last 3 opportunities that fell through? The acting studio that was going to make you famous? The import business that never imported anything? The life coaching certification that cost thousands and went nowhere? The table went silent. I'd crossed an invisible line by bringing up Rebecca's past failures. Her face flushed deep red. That's not fair. Those were learning experiences. Expensive learning experiences, I said quietly, that Mom and Dad funded. You've always been jealous of me, Rebecca accused, her voice trembling. Always trying to make me look bad because you're so boring and ordinary. All you have is your stupid hospital job and your perfect little apartment. You don't take chances. You don't dream big. I dream responsibly, I countered. And I work for what I have instead of expecting bailouts every time things get tough. Rebecca shot to her feet, tears streaming down her face. You ruined our lives, she screamed. Every time I find something that could make me special, you tear it down. You've always wanted me to fail. What happened next will stay with me forever. My parents, both of them, stood up behind Rebecca and started applauding. Actually clapping, as if her outburst deserved a standing ovation. That's right, honey, Mom said. It's time someone said it. I sat frozen, unable to comprehend what was happening. My own parents were literally applauding as my sister accused me of ruining their lives, after everything I'd done to help. After all the late-night rescue missions and emergency loans and emotional support. What are you talking about? I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. She was always jealous of me, Rebecca declared, emboldened by our parents' support. She turned to them, gesturing wildly in my direction. Olivia has resented me since we were kids, because everyone could see I had the real talent in the family, Mom. Nodded vigorously. You never supported your sister's dreams, always with the practical questions and budget concerns, as if money matters more than passion. I felt like I'd stepped into some alternate reality where everything was backward. Are you serious right now? Who helped Rebecca move 4 times in 3 years? Who lent her money when she couldn't make rent? Who stayed up all night helping her prepare for auditions? That's exactly the problem, Dad cut in, his voice uncharacteristically sharp. You do these things and then hold them over her head. You set yourself up as the responsible savior while making her feel small. Tyler, who had been watching this family implosion with unsettling interest, placed his hand on Rebecca's shoulder. I've seen how much your sister's attitude affects Rebecca's confidence. The negative energy is toxic to her creative process. I stared at this stranger who had known my sister for all of 2 months, now weighing in on our family dynamics. Excuse me, but this isn't about you. Actually, it is, Rebecca said, wiping away tears while leaning into Tyler's embrace. Tyler believes in me. He sees my potential without constantly reminding me of past mistakes. We've remortgaged the house because we believe in Rebecca too, Mom added defiantly. Sometimes you have to take risks for the people you love. The full implication hit me. You've already given them the money? The full $50,000? Dad lifted his chin. We signed the papers yesterday. The money's been transferred to their business account. A cold wave of dread washed over me. Did you at least get some kind of contract? Protection in case this opportunity doesn't work out? We don't need a contract with family, Mom dismissed. Rebecca would never take advantage of us. I turned to Tyler. And what about you? What's your stake in all this? How much of your own money have you invested? His smile never reached his eyes. My contribution is expertise and connections. I've been in this industry for years. Something in his practiced response set off warning bells. Which industry exactly? Multi-level marketing? Or taking advantage of hopeful people like my sister? How dare you! Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. Tyler has connections you couldn't even imagine. He's been mentored by top entrepreneurs. Names? I pressed. Companies? Actual businesses I could look up? Tyler's expression hardened for a split second before he smoothed it into concerned sympathy. Your sister warned me about your skepticism. It's sad to see someone so young already so closed-minded to opportunity. I ignored him and turned back to my parents. Mom? Dad? Please? Tell me you at least researched this company before giving them your retirement security. The fleeting uncertainty that crossed my father's face told me everything. We trust Rebecca's judgment, Mom stated firmly. And we're tired of you always assuming she'll fail. Why can't you be supportive like a real sister? Her words cut deep. A real sister. As if all I'd done for Rebecca over the years counted for nothing. I am being supportive, I said quietly. Being supportive doesn't mean blindly agreeing to everything. Sometimes it means asking hard questions to protect the people you love. Protect? Rebecca laughed bitterly. You've never wanted to protect me. You've wanted to control me, to keep me small so you could feel big. That's not true, I whispered, feeling tears begin to form. It is true, Dad said, his voice heavy with what sounded like long-held resentment. We've always had to make up for how you overshadowed Rebecca. Ever since you were kids, you were the smart one, the responsible one, the successful one. Do you have any idea what that's done to your sister's self-esteem? I sat in stunned silence as years of family history were rewritten before my eyes. Somehow my academic success, my career achievements, my financial responsibility, all things I thought would make my parents proud, were being cast as weapons I'd used against my sister. So my crime is being successful? I finally asked. Your crime is throwing it in everyone's face, Rebecca exploded. Always judging, always so superior with your perfect job and your perfect boyfriend and your perfect life. My life isn't perfect, I countered. I've worked incredibly hard for everything I have. You could have. See? There you go again. Rebecca cut me off, implying I don't work hard, that I don't deserve success. That's not what I said. Tyler cleared his throat. I think what Rebecca is trying to express is that your negative attitude toward her opportunities has held her back psychologically. As her business partner, I've seen firsthand how your doubt affects her confidence. Something about his rehearsed concern made my skin crawl. I turned to face him directly. How many of these businesses have you started, Tyler? And how many have succeeded? A flash of something, anger, concern, crossed his face before he regained his composed expression. My track record isn't the issue here. The issue is your inability to support your sister's dreams. You don't belong here, go away! Rebecca suddenly screamed, her face contorted with rage. You've never belonged in this family. You're not one of us. The room fell silent except for Rebecca's heavy breathing. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something, to defend me, to acknowledge the cruelty of what had just been said. Instead, Mom reached out to pat Rebecca's hand comfortingly. Maybe it would be best if you left, Olivia. We can talk, when everyone's calmer. I felt tears sliding down my cheeks but made no move to wipe them away. Is that really how you all feel? That I don't belong in this family? Dad looked uncomfortable but said nothing to contradict Rebecca's outburst. Mom avoided my eyes. Rebecca glared defiantly, Tyler's arm around her shoulders. "There's something else you should know," Mom finally said. "We've updated our will. The house will go to Rebecca when, well, you know. We feel she'll need the security more than you will." The final blow. Not just rejected in the present, but erased from their future as well. I stood up slowly, my legs feeling strangely numb. "I see. Well, then there's nothing left to say." "Aren't you going to apologize?" Rebecca demanded. "For all the times you've undermined me?" I looked at my sister, this person I'd loved and protected and supported for 27 years, and felt an overwhelming sadness. "I'm sorry you feel I've hurt you. That was never my intention." "That's not a real apology," she scoffed. I gathered my purse, leaving the container of lemon squares untouched on the counter. The walk to the front door felt impossibly long, the silence suffocating. No one followed me. No one called me back, as I reached for the doorknob. Mom's voice came from behind me. "Don't call until you're ready to apologize properly. And stay away from Rebecca and Tyler's business associates. We don't need your negativity ruining this opportunity." I didn't turn around. I couldn't bear to see the expression on her face. My mother, who had once kissed my scraped knees and celebrated my school achievements. "Goodbye," I whispered, and stepped out into the night. The door closed behind me with a decisive click. In the driveway, I sat in my car for several minutes, too shaken to drive, watching the warm glow of my childhood home, a place where I apparently no longer belonged. The Chicago skyline blurred through my tears as I drove home on autopilot, traffic lights smeared into watercolor streaks of red and green. I couldn't process what had just happened, how a family dinner had imploded into complete rejection. The radio played softly in the background, some cheery pop song about family and belonging that felt like a cruel joke. My apartment building looked different somehow when I pulled into the parking garage, less like home and more like just another impersonal structure of steel and glass. The elevator ride to the 12th floor stretched endlessly. When I finally unlocked my door, the silence of my empty apartment enveloped me. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching familiar objects. The framed photo of my hospital team accepting an award, the throw blanket Rebecca had given me 3 Christmases ago, the collection of classic novels Dad and I used to discuss. All these artifacts from a family life that apparently had been an illusion. My phone rang, startling me out of my daze. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. With shaking hands, I answered, hoping against hope that she was calling to apologize, to say it had all been a terrible misunderstanding. "I can't believe you left without apologizing," her voice came through, sharp with accusation. "Mom is crying. Are you happy now?" Before I could respond, she continued. "Tyler says your negative attitude is exactly what holds people back from success. You're toxic, Olivia. Until you can be supportive, stay away from us." The call ended abruptly. I stood frozen, phone still, pressed to my ear until the automatic screen lock engaged and left me staring at my own reflection in the darkened glass. My fingers moved without conscious thought, dialing Marcus. "Liv? What's wrong?" His voice, warm and concerned, broke the dam I'd been desperately trying to hold together. "Everything," I sobbed. "My family. They said I ruined their lives." "I'm coming over," he said immediately. 20 minutes. While waiting for Marcus, I curled up on my couch, still wearing my jacket. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dad. "Your mother is very upset. I expected better from you." Then another. Call from Rebecca. I let it go to voicemail. Then one from Mom. Then my Aunt Susan, Dad's sister. I listened to the voicemails with growing disbelief. "Olivia, it's Aunt Susan. Your mother just called me in tears about how you attacked Rebecca at dinner. I've always thought you were the sensible one. I'm very disappointed." Next. "Hey, cuz, it's Trevor. Mom told me what happened. Not cool to rain on Becca's parade. She's finally found something she's good at. The calls and texts multiplied like a virus. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even my parents' neighbors. By the time Marcus arrived, I'd received 17 messages, each one more accusatory than the last. Marcus listened in stunned silence as I recounted the evening's events, his arm steady around my shoulders. They've convinced everyone that I'm the villain, I whispered, showing him the flood of messages. Rebecca's making it sound like I went there specifically to sabotage her. Marcus scrolled through my phone, his frown deepening. This is coordinated, he said finally. They're all getting the same version of events and it's completely twisted. He was right. My phone pinged with a social media notification. Rebecca had posted a tearful video claiming I had always been jealous of her and had tried to sabotage the biggest opportunity of her life out of spite. The comments section overflowed with support for her and condemnation of me. Check this out, Marcus said grimly, showing me his own phone. Rebecca had sent group texts to extended family and mutual friends, sharing screenshots of conversations that were selectively edited to make me look controlling and jealous. But these aren't even real conversations, I protested, looking at messages attributed to me that I'd never written. She's fabricating evidence. By midnight, the call count had reached 47. Friends from high school, college acquaintances, even my mother's book club members. The story had spread like wildfire, with each retelling painting me as more villainous. You need to document all of this, Marcus advised, his medical training giving way to practical protection mode. Save every message, every call, every post. If they're willing to lie like this, who knows what else they might do? I barely slept that night. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's furious face, heard her scream that I didn't belong. I kept replaying years of interactions, searching for signs I'd missed, wondering if I'd somehow failed my sister without realizing it. Dawn brought no relief. My phone showed 15 new messages and 10 missed calls. I couldn't bear to listen to more accusations, so I silenced notifications before heading to the hospital for my shift. My colleagues immediately noticed something was wrong. My usual focused efficiency was replaced by distraction and red-rimmed eyes. My assistant director, Naomi, cornered me in my office. "Whatever's going on, you need to take care of yourself," she said firmly. "The department won't collapse if you take a personal day." I tried to smile. "I'm fine, just family stuff." "Family stuff doesn't usually result in someone looking like they've been hit by a truck," she observed bluntly. "We've worked together for 4 years, Olivia. I know when you're not okay." By lunchtime, the call count had reached 73. I checked my phone in a bathroom stall, scrolling through the notifications with increasing numbness. The narrative had evolved. Now I was not only jealous of Rebecca's business opportunity, but I had supposedly tried to convince my parents not to support her financially because I wanted their money for myself. The absolute absurdity of this accusation might have made me laugh if the situation weren't so painful. I had never asked my parents for money, not even for college. Every dollar I had was earned through my own hard work. Call number 82 came from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Olivia? It's Emma. Emma Reyes from high school." Emma and I had been close once, before college sent us in different directions. We'd occasionally liked each other's social media posts, but hadn't had a real conversation in years. "I just saw Rebecca's posts," she continued, "and I wanted to check on you. Something doesn't add up." The genuine concern in her voice nearly broke me. "She's lying, Emma," I whispered, ducking deeper into the bathroom stall. "Everything she's saying is twisted or completely fabricated." "I figured," Emma replied. "I remember how you were always bailing her out of problems in high school. The Rebecca I knew would never have gotten anywhere without you saving her ass repeatedly." For the first time since the disastrous dinner, I felt a glimmer of relief. Someone believed me. Someone could see through the elaborate fiction my family was constructing. "What can I do to help?" Emma asked. By the time I got home that evening, The call count had reached 99. The final call came from my father's brother, Uncle David, whom I'd always been close to. "Olivia, it's Uncle David. I've been hearing some concerning things, but I wanted to talk to you directly before forming any opinions. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow?" That single voice of reason, someone willing to hear my side before judging me, felt like finding water in a desert. As I saved the voicemail, I realized something important. The family that mattered wasn't necessarily the one I was born into, but the one that treated me with love and respect. With Marcus bringing takeout and Emma texting supportive messages, I allowed myself to acknowledge a painful truth. Sometimes the people who should love you the most can hurt you the deepest. And sometimes, the family you need is the one you find along the way. 3 days after the dinner from hell, I sat across from Uncle David in a quiet corner of Intelligentsia Coffee. His familiar face, with the same gray eyes my father and I shared, offered a painful reminder of the family connection that had been severed. "I've been getting strange calls from your dad and Rebecca," he said, stirring his black coffee. "Something about you trying to sabotage some business venture," I sighed, twisting my cup in its saucer. That's not exactly how it happened. For the next 30 minutes, I recounted the dinner disaster, Tyler's vague business proposal, and my parents' shocking decision to remortgage their retirement home. Uncle David listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. $50,000? He finally asked. To a man they just met? I nodded. They didn't even research the company, and when I asked questions, suddenly I was the villain. Uncle David's frown deepened. "This doesn't sound like my brother. Your dad's always been cautious with money." "That's what I thought too," I replied. "But it's like Rebecca and Tyler have some kind of hold over them. They're not thinking rationally." After a thoughtful pause, Uncle David asked, "What's the name of this company again?" "Global Lifestyle Enterprises. Tyler said their division is called Platinum Wellness Collection." Uncle David took out his phone and made a note. "Let me ask around. I have some contacts in consumer protection who might know something." As he stood to leave, he placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your father and I grew up watching our own parents get swindled by a similar scheme in the 70s. It nearly bankrupted them. I can't believe he'd fall for something like this." His words sparked something in my brain. "People often don't see the parallels in their own lives," I murmured. "They think they're too smart to be conned." That evening, I created a new email address and began researching Global Lifestyle Enterprises. The company's website was slick but suspiciously vague, full of stock photos of smiling people and buzzwords like empowerment, lifestyle transformation, and unlimited earning potential. I dug deeper, searching business registration databases and consumer complaint forums. By midnight, I had uncovered disturbing patterns. Global Lifestyle Enterprises had previously operated under 3 different names in 5 years. Each time complaints and lawsuits mounted, they would rebrand and continue with the same business model. I texted Emma, who had offered to help. "Can you run a background check on Tyler Richardson? I'm worried he's scamming my family." Emma's response came quickly. "On it. My brother works for a private investigation firm now. He owes me a favor." The next morning, I asked Naomi to cover my afternoon meetings and visited a financial advisor friend who specialized in fraud recovery. "Based on what you're describing," Tara said after reviewing my notes, "this has all the hallmarks of a sophisticated pyramid scheme. The regional director title, the inventory requirements, the emphasis on recruiting, these are classic red flags." "Can anything be done to recover the money?" I asked. Tara's expression was sympathetic but realistic. "If they've already transferred the funds, it might be difficult. These organizations are designed to move money quickly through multiple accounts, but documenting everything is crucial." 2 days later, Emma called with news from her brother. "Tyler Richardson isn't even his real name," she began without preamble. "It's Tyler Richmond. He's had complaints filed against him in Ohio, Indiana, and Wisconsin for similar investment schemes. He targets families with assets and creates divisions to manipulate them. My stomach tightened. Creating divisions? You mean like turning my family against me? Exactly, Emma confirmed. According to my brother, it's a common tactic. He identifies the most skeptical family member and isolates them, makes them the enemy. That way, when the money disappears, the family is too busy blaming each other to come after him effectively. I thanked Emma and sat in stunned silence after the call ended. This wasn't just about money. Tyler had deliberately driven a wedge between me and my family as part of his strategy. Uncle David's information confirmed our suspicions. His contact at the state attorney general's office revealed an ongoing investigation into global lifestyle enterprises for fraudulent business practices. Tyler Richmond's name appeared in their files. Armed with this information, I faced an ethical dilemma. Should I attempt to warn my family immediately, knowing they would likely reject anything coming from me? Or should I compile irrefutable evidence first, even if that meant letting them remain in danger longer? I called Marcus to talk through my options. If you approach them now, they'll dismiss you as jealous and interfering, he reasoned. Rebecca and Tyler have poisoned that well thoroughly. But every day that passes puts my parents at risk of losing more, I countered. After careful consideration, I decided on a two-pronged approach. First, I anonymously reported Tyler and Global Lifestyle Enterprises to the Financial Crimes Division of the State Attorney General's office, providing all the evidence I'd gathered. Second, I tried calling my father at his office, hoping to reach him away from Rebecca and Tyler's influence. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a careful message. Dad, it's Olivia. I've discovered some concerning information about Global Lifestyle Enterprises. Please call me back before making any additional investments. He never returned the call. Instead, Rebecca texted me hours later. Stop trying to sabotage my business. Dad told me you called. You're pathetic. I showed the message to Marcus, who shook his head in disbelief. They've got them completely wrapped around their finger. Over the next week, I established a routine of documenting everything. Each social media post Rebecca made about her amazing business opportunity, every family member who contacted me with accusations, every detail about Global Lifestyle Enterprises that I could uncover, all carefully saved and organized. Uncle David became my most valuable ally, maintaining relationships with my parents while subtly asking questions about their investment. They won't tell me much, he reported. Tyler has convinced them that negative energy can damage their success. They're isolating themselves from anyone who asks questions. This information matched what I was reading about cult-like tactics in multi-level marketing schemes. The isolation, the US versus them mentality, the promise of exclusive knowledge. Tyler was using textbook manipulation strategies. As painful as it was, I realized I needed to step back. My continued attempts to reach my parents were only reinforcing Tyler's narrative about me. Instead, I focused on building a comprehensive case file that could help them when the inevitable collapse occurred. Emma's brother provided background, checks showing Tyler had been involved in at least 7 different schemes in the past 5 years. Uncle David's contacts confirmed that investor complaints were mounting against Global Lifestyle Enterprises. While gathering this information, I also took Marcus's advice about self-care. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family estrangement. Dr. Jenkins helped me process the shock and grief of my family's rejection. What you're experiencing is a form of ambiguous loss, she explained. Your family is physically present but psychologically absent. It's particularly painful because there's no clear resolution. These sessions helped me recognize that my family's behavior reflected their vulnerabilities, not my worth. Rebecca's constant need for validation, my parents' enabling patterns. These dynamics had existed long before Tyler exploited them. I established an emergency fund specifically for my parents, knowing they might need financial help when the scheme inevitably collapsed. Though they had rejected me, I couldn't abandon them to financial ruin. As weeks passed, I found strength in unexpected places. Colleagues at the hospital rallied around me when they realized something serious was happening. Naomi organized dinner, gatherings to ensure I wasn't spending too much time alone. Emma reintroduced me to old high school friends who provided distraction and laughter. Most importantly, Marcus never wavered. Your capacity for compassion, even after everything they've done, is remarkable, he told me one evening as we walked along Lake Michigan. But don't forget to protect yourself too. I watched the waves lapping against the shore, thinking about how water always finds its level eventually. I'm learning that family isn't just about blood, I said finally. It's about who stands by you when things fall apart. He squeezed my hand, and in that moment I felt a strange sense of peace. The family that had raised me had rejected me, but the family I was building, friends, colleagues, chosen connections, was proving stronger and more authentic than I'd ever imagined possible. I couldn't know when or how the global lifestyle enterprises scheme would unravel, but I would be ready when it did, not with "I told you so," but with the resources to help pick up the pieces. Because that's what real family does. They help you rebuild even when you've pushed them away. Exactly 3 months and 7 days after the disastrous family dinner, my phone rang at 2:17 a.m. I fumbled for it in the darkness, squinting at the screen. Rebecca's name flashed, along with her photo. One from happier times, her arm slung around my shoulder at my hospital department's Christmas party 2 years ago. My heart raced as I answered. "Rebecca? What's wrong?" All I could hear was sobbing, broken, guttural sounds that barely resembled my sister's voice. "Becca, talk to me. Are you hurt? Are you safe?" Adrenaline had me fully awake now, sitting upright in bed. "He's gone," she finally managed between sobs. "Tyler. He's gone, with everything." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Where are you?" "Mom. And Dad's." Her voice cracked. "They're going to lose the house, Liv. Everything's gone." "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't do anything until I arrive." I dressed quickly, my mind racing. This was the moment I'd been preparing for, though I'd hoped it wouldn't come. Marcus stirred as I was putting on my shoes. "Rebecca called," I explained tersely. "Tyler's disappeared with the money." He sat up immediately. "Want me to come with you?" I considered it briefly, then shook my head. "I think this needs to be just family initially, but I'll call if I need backup." The roads were empty as I drove to my parents' house, streetlights, casting intermittent shadows across my dashboard. I mentally reviewed the file of evidence I'd compiled, the resources I'd arranged, the plan I'd developed for exactly this scenario. When I arrived, the house was fully lit despite the early hour. Rebecca opened the door, her face puffy and tear-stained, wearing the same clothes I'd seen in her social media post from the previous day. "Where are Mom and Dad?" I asked, stepping inside. "Kitchen." Her voice was hollow, defeated. They sat at the table, looking years older than when I'd last seen them. Mom's hair was uncombed. Dad's shoulders slumped in a way I'd never witnessed before. Neither looked up as I entered. "Tell me what happened," I said quietly, taking a seat across from them. Dad cleared his throat. "Tyler called yesterday with an emergency opportunity. Said we needed to invest another $75,000 immediately to secure our position. We didn't have it. When Rebecca couldn't get the money, he cleaned out their business account. And disappeared. He left a note," Rebecca whispered, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "Thanks for the investment. Better luck next time." Her laugh was bitter. 3 months of my life, $50,000. And that's all he left. "The bank called this morning," Mom added, her voice distant. "We've missed 2 mortgage payments. They're starting foreclosure proceedings." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations and regrets. I could feel them waiting for me to say, "I told you so," to gloat over their misfortune, to exact verbal revenge for their rejection. Instead, I said, "I need you all to come to my apartment this afternoon at 3. Bring any documentation you Have about the business, the mortgage, and your financial situation. Rebecca looked up, confusion crossing her tear-stained face. Your apartment? Why? Because we need to address this systematically, and we can't do that here. The environment is too charged with emotion. I stood up. 3 o'clock. Don't be late. As I turned to leave, Dad finally spoke directly to me. Olivia, we can't ask for your help after everything. I paused at the kitchen doorway. You're not asking. I'm offering. 3 o'clock. Back at my apartment, I spent the morning preparing. I arranged the evidence I'd gathered in clear labeled folders. I called Uncle David, who agreed to join us. I contacted Tara, my financial advisor, friend who offered emergency consultation services. I prepared a simple timeline of events, starting with the dinner and ending with Tyler's disappearance. Marcus helped me rearrange the living room to accommodate everyone. Are you sure you're ready for this? He asked, concern evident in his voice. No, I admitted, but it's necessary. At precisely 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My family stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Behind them was Uncle David, whose supportive nod gave me courage. Come in, I said, gesturing to the arranged seating in the living room. We have a lot to cover. Once everyone was settled, I remained standing, suddenly feeling like I was conducting a business presentation rather than a family intervention. Before we begin, I want to establish some ground rules. First, this is not about blame. We're here to assess the situation and develop an action plan. Second, everyone gets to speak without interruption. And third, any solution we develop will require cooperation from all of us. Rebecca immediately broke Rule 1. This wouldn't have happened if you'd supported us from the beginning, she snapped. If you'd invested too, Tyler would have stayed. I took a deep breath. Rebecca, that's not how these schemes work. Tyler was always going to disappear with the money. That was his plan from day one. You can't know that, she insisted. Actually, I can. I picked up the first folder. This contains Tyler's real identity and history. His name is Tyler Richmond, and he's done this at least 7 times before in 3 different states. He targets families with assets, creates division among family members, and disappears once he's extracted maximum value. I distributed copies of the background check Emma's brother had provided, along with newspaper clippings about previous victims. The room fell silent as they absorbed the information. How did you get all this? Dad finally asked, his voice subdued. I've been investigating since the night of the dinner, I replied. I knew something wasn't right, and I wanted to be prepared to help when the scheme collapsed. Mom looked up from the papers, her eyes glistening. You knew this would happen, and you still came when Rebecca called? After everything we said to you? I nodded, throat tight with emotion. You're my family. Uncle David stepped forward then, laying a supportive hand on my shoulder. Olivia has been working tirelessly to build a case against Tyler and protect you, even while you were shutting her out. She never stopped caring. Rebecca's face crumpled. I believed him, every word. How could I have been so stupid? Targeted. Manipulation isn't about intelligence, I told her. It's about exploiting emotional vulnerabilities. Tyler studied you all carefully. He knew exactly which buttons to push. For the next 2 hours, we methodically went through everything: the fake business, the missing money, the mortgage situation, and potential paths forward. I presented multiple options for addressing the financial crisis, including legal recourse against Tyler. I've already filed reports with the Attorney General's office and the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, I explained, showing them copies of the complaints. They've added your case to an ongoing investigation. There's a chance. You might recover some money, but it's not guaranteed and it won't be quick. My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. As for the house, I continued, I've spoken with a housing counselor who specializes in foreclosure prevention. There are several options, but they all require immediate action and complete financial transparency. Dad cleared his throat. We don't deserve your help, Olivia. This isn't about deserving, I replied evenly. This is about family. But I do have conditions. The room went silent again, all eyes on me. First, we need complete honesty from this point forward. No more secrets, no more manipulation. Second, I'm not offering a financial bailout. I'm offering resources, guidance, and support to help you rebuild. Third, and this is non-negotiable, we all need to attend family therapy to address the patterns that led us here. Therapy? Mom repeated, her tone skeptical. Uncle David spoke up. I think that's an excellent idea. This situation didn't happen in a vacuum. There are long-standing dynamics that need to be addressed. Rebecca wiped fresh tears. I'll do anything. I need my sister back. Her words, so vulnerable and honest, cracked something open inside me. For the first time since that terrible dinner, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of my grief. Not just for the money lost or the trust broken, but for the years of unspoken resentments and misunderstandings that had led us here. I never left, Becca, I said softly. Even when you pushed me away, I was still your sister. Dad stood up suddenly, his movement startling in the emotional quiet of the room. He walked over to me, his steps hesitant. I have spent my entire adult life priding myself on being a good provider, a good protector, and in one terrible decision, I nearly destroyed everything. His voice broke. Can you ever forgive me for failing you? For choosing to believe the worst about my own daughter? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, all the hurtful messages I'd received, all the family gatherings I'd missed. Forgiveness seemed both impossible and absolutely necessary. I don't know yet, I answered honestly, but I'm willing to try. That's what family does. We try. He nodded, understanding the conditional nature of my response. This wouldn't be fixed in a day or a week, or perhaps even a year. Trust, once shattered, could only be rebuilt piece by tiny piece. As they prepared to leave, armed with action plans and resource lists, Rebecca lingered behind. I said terrible things to you, she whispered. Things I didn't even believe deep down. I was so desperate to finally be the successful one, to make them proud like you always did. Tyler saw that weakness and exploited it perfectly. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw not the angry woman who had screamed accusations, but the little girl who had once followed me everywhere, who had cried when I left for college, who had always sought validation in all the wrong places. We have a long road ahead, I told her, but we're going to walk it together this time. After they left, Marcus found me standing at the window, watching my family's car pull away. You were amazing, he said, wrapping his arms around me. Compassionate, but firm, setting boundaries while still offering help. I leaned into his embrace, exhausted but relieved. The hardest part is just beginning, I murmured. Rebuilding trust is going to take time. True healing always does, he replied. But you've laid the foundation today. As the sun set over Chicago, casting long shadows across my living room, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not the naive hope that everything would magically return to normal, but the realistic hope that comes from looking at broken things and seeing the possibility of something stronger being built from the pieces. 6 months after the confrontation in my apartment, I stood in the waiting room of Dr. Ella Winter's family therapy practice, watching rain streak down the windows. Today marked our 26th session together, a weekly ritual that had become both dreaded and necessary for all of us. The door opened, and Mom appeared, offering a tentative smile. The doctor's ready for us. Inside, Dad and Rebecca were already seated in the now familiar arrangement of comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Dr. Winters, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense approach, nodded as I took my seat. Today I'd like to discuss how far you've all come, she began, and where you hope to go from here. The past 6 months had been a careful choreography of rebuilding. Financial rehabilitation had actually proven easier than emotional healing. My parents had sold their two-large suburban house, downsizing to a comfortable condo that eliminated their mortgage stress. Rebecca had found steady employment as an administrative assistant at a local theater, not the starring role she'd once dreamed of, but a position that connected her to the arts while providing consistent income. "I'd like to start," Dad said, surprising me. He had been the most resistant to therapy initially, viewing it as an admission of failure. 6 months ago, I couldn't admit even to myself how much damage I'd caused our family. I was so caught up in being right, in not acknowledging my mistakes, that I pushed away the one person who was actually trying to protect us. He turned to face me directly. "Olivia, when you were a little girl, I used to tell everyone I knew how proud I was of your intelligence, your responsibility. Somewhere along the way, I started taking those qualities for granted, even resenting them when they highlighted Rebecca's different approach to life." Rebecca shifted in her seat but didn't interrupt. This, too, was progress. "I failed you both," Dad continued. "I failed Rebecca by not helping her develop independence. I failed you by punishing you for the very traits I should have celebrated. I'm still learning how to be a better father, but I want you both to know I see my mistakes clearly now." Mom reached over to squeeze his hand, her wedding ring catching the light. They had celebrated their 33rd anniversary last month with a small dinner that included Marcus and me, the first family celebration since the fracture. "I've been thinking about patterns," Mom said, picking up the conversation. "How we repeat what we know, even when it hurts us. My own mother always pitted me against my sister, creating competition where there should have been support." She looked between Rebecca and me. "Without realizing it, I did the same to you two. Instead of celebrating your different strengths, I created a dynamic where Rebecca felt she could never measure up to Olivia, and Olivia felt her achievements were meaningless unless they came with sacrifice." Dr. Winters nodded encouragingly. "Recognition of patterns is the first step toward changing them." Rebecca spoke next, her voice steadier than it had been in early sessions when she often dissolved into tears of shame and regret. "I've spent most of my life feeling like the family disappointment. Every time Olivia succeeded, I felt like a failure in comparison. Instead of working harder or finding my own path, I looked for shortcuts and validation from the wrong people." She turned to me, maintaining eye contact in a way that had been impossible months ago. "Tyler saw that insecurity and exploited it perfectly. He told me everything I wanted to hear, that my failures weren't my fault, that Olivia was holding me back, that I deserved success without having to work for it. I wanted to believe him so badly that I became someone I didn't recognize." The rain outside intensified, drumming against the windows like a distant applause. "What about you, Olivia?" Dr. Winters prompted gently. "How would you describe your journey these past 6 months?" I took a deep breath, organizing my thoughts. So much had changed externally. My recent promotion to hospital administration director, my engagement to Marcus last month, my expanding circle of authentic friendships. But the internal changes felt more significant. "I've learned that being right isn't the same as being helpful," I began. For years, I thought I was supporting Rebecca by solving her problems, but I was actually enabling patterns that kept her dependent. I've had to examine my own need to be the responsible one, the fixer, and recognize how that role sometimes prevented others from growing. I looked at my family, these people who had hurt me deeply, but whom I still loved. I've also learned that forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a process. There are still days when I remember the things that were said that night, and it feels like a fresh wound. But there are also days when I see how hard we're all working to create something healthier. And that gives me hope. Dr. Winters smiled. "That's a profound insight, Olivia. Healing isn't linear. It has setbacks and breakthroughs, sometimes on the same day." The remainder of the session focused on practical strategies for the upcoming holiday season. Our first, Full family Thanksgiving since the rupture. We discussed boundaries, triggers, and exit strategies if tensions rose. As we prepared to leave, Dr. Winters reminded us, recovery from family trauma takes time. You're rebuilding trust that was severely damaged. Be patient with the process and with each other. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and clean. Mom hesitated beside her car. Would you and Marcus like to come over for dinner this weekend? Nothing fancy, just family. 6 months ago, such an invitation would have filled me with anxiety. Today, it felt like a small victory. We'd like that, I replied. Later that evening, I met Uncle David for our weekly coffee, another ritual born from the crisis. He had become an unexpected anchor during the turbulent months of family reconstruction. How was therapy? He asked, sliding a latte toward me. Productive, I replied. Dad actually opened up about his regrets without prompting. Uncle David nodded appreciatively. That's major progress. He called me yesterday, wanted advice about financial planning for his new job. After the downsizing, Dad had taken a position teaching accounting at a community college, a long-held dream he'd abandoned decades ago for a more lucrative corporate path. The smaller salary matched their simpler lifestyle, and the work brought him genuine satisfaction. How's Rebecca doing with the boundaries you've set? Uncle David asked. I sipped my coffee, considering. Better. She hasn't asked for money in 3 months, and when she needed help moving to her new apartment, she actually hired movers instead of expecting me to do it. And your mother? Working on her tendency to triangulate, I said. Now when she starts criticizing Rebecca to me or vice versa, I remind her we agreed to speak directly to the person we have an issue with. Uncle David smiled. Sounds like real progress, not just surface politeness. It is, I agreed. Slow and imperfect, but real. When I returned home, Marcus was preparing dinner, jazz playing softly in the background. Our wedding plans were taking shape. A small ceremony next spring with only our closest friends and family. Emma called, he mentioned, stirring pasta sauce. She found an article you might want to read. Tyler Richmond was arrested in Florida for running the same scam on a retirement community. I felt a complex mix of emotions. Satisfaction that he'd been caught, sadness for his new victims, relief that my family's experience might help build the case against him. I'll let Rebecca and my parents know, I said. It might help with closure. As we ate dinner, I shared updates from therapy and the dinner invitation from my mother. Marcus listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions without judgment. One of the countless reasons I'd fallen in love with him. He said as we cleared the dishes. Watching how you've handled this whole situation has been remarkable. You had every right to walk away after what they did, but you chose the harder path of reconciliation. That takes extraordinary strength. His words warmed me, but I shook my head slightly. Not extraordinary, just necessary. For me as much as for them. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' new condo for dinner. The space was smaller but warmer somehow, furnished with only the pieces they truly loved from the old house. Rebecca arrived shortly after me, bringing a homemade salad, another small sign of her growing responsibility. Conversation flowed more naturally than it had in recent gatherings. Mom shared news about her volunteer work at the local library. Dad described a bright student who reminded him of me at that age, a comparison offered with pride rather than expectation. Rebecca caught my eye across the table. I had my 1-year sobriety review yesterday, she said quietly. This aspect of her recovery had remained private until now, known only to me and her sponsor. They gave me my chip. That's wonderful, Becca, I said sincerely, reaching over to squeeze her hand. Mom looked surprised, then thoughtful. I didn't realize. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. That's a significant achievement. Thanks, Rebecca replied, a blush coloring her cheeks. It's been hard, but worth it. Turns out I was using alcohol to numb a lot of feelings I needed to actually deal with. We all had our ways of avoiding difficult truths, Dad acknowledged, some more destructive than others. After dinner, while Rebecca helped Mom with dessert, Dad drew me aside to the small balcony overlooking a community garden. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves. "I've been meaning to tell you," he said, his voice low. "We've updated our will again." My stomach tightened reflexively, an echo of past pain. "We've made arrangements to split things equally. Between you and Rebecca," he continued. "But more importantly, we've set up a structure that ensures Rebecca will have support managing her portion if needed, without putting that responsibility on you." The thoughtfulness of this arrangement, acknowledging Rebecca's needs while releasing me from the role of permanent caretaker, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. That's the right approach." He nodded, clearing his throat against emotion. "I want you to know that while I'm trying to support Rebecca's independence, I've never been more proud of you than I am right now. Not because of your job or your education or any achievement. I'm proud of the woman you've become. Someone who stands by her principles while still offering compassion." Inside, I could hear Mom and Rebecca laughing about something, a sound that had once been common in our family, but had become precious in its rarity. "We should join them," Dad said, holding the door open for me. Over dessert, we discussed the upcoming Thanksgiving plans. Rebecca suggested a potluck approach where everyone contributed a dish, relieving Mom of the overwhelming burden of preparation that had often left her too exhausted to enjoy the actual gathering. "I'd like to make Grandma's sweet potato casserole," I offered. "I found her original recipe card when I was helping you pack." Mom smiled, the expression reaching her eyes in a way it rarely had before. "She'd like that, Olivia. She always said, 'You were the one who inherited her patience for cooking.'" As the evening wound down, I felt a profound sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect, it wasn't. Not because all wounds were healed. Some still ached when touched. But because we were finally seeing each other clearly, without the distortions of jealousy, resentment, or unmet expectations. Driving home under a canopy of stars, I reflected on the long journey from that devastating dinner to tonight's gathering. The family I had now wasn't the idealized version I'd clung to for so many years. It was messy and complicated, with visible scars and ongoing challenges. But it was real in a way it had never been before. Sometimes losing everything shows you what you actually have. Sometimes the family you build from broken pieces is stronger than the one that existed before. As I pulled into my parking garage, I thought about the various forms of family that had sustained me through the darkest days. Marcus with his unwavering support, Emma with her practical help, Uncle David with his steady wisdom, colleagues who became friends, and eventually, the rebuilt relationships with my parents and sister. The family I have today isn't perfect, but it's real. Sometimes you have to lose the family you thought you had to build the one you truly deserve. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship after betrayal? Let me know in the comments what helped you through that process. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of healing after family trauma. Remember, sometimes our deepest wounds become our greatest sources of strength. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and may you find peace in your own family story, whatever shape it takes.